Hi everybody, welcome to week 6 of your EBP course. We are nearing the finish line. This is looking good. All right, thank you for getting in your section E and F papers. Now, since you had to submit 2 papers this week, I probably will not have them all graded by Saturday night, but I will do my best to get them back to you just as soon as I can. All right, so we have our usual 2 discussion questions this week, right? The first one asks about gaps in the literature. Now, depending on why you are accessing the studies, the gaps may mean different things to you, okay? I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts about that idea. The second question has to do with statistical and clinical significance. Now, hopefully, the results of a study will have both, right? That's the gold standard. But unfortunately, sometimes that is not the case. And we need to be able to know what to do if the studies have one of those components but not the other. How do we differentiate? How to be sure that we're using results that have one or the other in the best way? Or what are we going to do with that information if both types of significance are not present in the study findings? Okay, now on to the assignment. So this week's paper is not too bad. So again, you have the usual 500 to 750 words. But this time you'll be discussing evaluating your EBP process data. Okay, so let's look at the directions. They're not too bad. So number 1 in the directions, why did you choose your method of data collection? So for example, why did you have the charge nurse complete a paper form? Or why did you decide to run a report from your electronic medical record? How did you make the decision about collecting the actual data that you were measuring? Why did you go that way? Number 2. Number 2 is about what you are measuring. Did what you were measuring capture all of the items that you wanted to accomplish when you identified the clinical problem way back in the beginning? Maybe the data that you're collecting does a really good job of addressing that issue, and it's great. But maybe this is a bigger issue. Maybe this is just a first step in addressing the totality of that problem. So is what the things that you are measuring, do they accomplish everything that you wanted to address when you initially had that clinical issue? That's really what that question is trying to get at. Number 3. Number 3 is kind of the hard question as far as racking your brain and maybe looking up terminology again and that sort of thing. So you need to discuss the outcomes that you are measuring in terms of validity, reliability, and applicability, right? So look at the way you are measuring whatever you're measuring. And for instance, are you using a validated tool and then looking at the actual change in the assessments? Are you looking at readmissions, and is that really reflective of the effectiveness of your process? So I'm not expecting rocket science, but do your best to try to address something of all 3 of those areas: validity, reliability, and applicability. For some of you, this will be very simple based on the processes that you're measuring and how you're putting that data together. For some of you, you're really going to need to kind of walk me through and connect the dots, okay? But please at least try to say something about those 3 areas. And reliability is reliability. There's different types of validity, though, and you can address anything within those types of validity. I'm okay with that. Okay? All right. Number 4. What will you do if you don't get the same type of results that you found in those original research studies that you used as evidence. For instance, the results showed a, I don't know, 20% decrease in fall rates, and you only achieved 5, or maybe they didn't go down at all. So think about your organization. Will that project just be dead at that point? Will you have an opportunity to maybe make modifications? What truly would happen if you didn't get the results that you were supposed to get? So I need a little bit of information about that, okay? And number 5. Number 5 is kind of like a big picture question. When we look at articles about research studies, there's always that section at the end about recommendations for practice or further research, right? So I want you to put on your scholarly hat, and what would be the next step in advancing this area of practice? What would you recommend going forward in terms of practice or further research that's needed? What would be your recommendations? Okay, so I think this paper isn't too bad after the last two. The last two, you really had to kind of dig down into some nitty-gritty. Stick to the word limit. Back up some of your assertions with references, and you'll do fine, okay? And then this is the last section. Then it'll be all about pulling it all together. So next week, I'll have a little bit more information about the pulling it all together parts for both the paper and the PowerPoint presentation. So I think that's about it for this week. In Utah, we're finally starting to get a little bit of warm weather, hopefully in a few days. I'm still wearing light sweaters, but I'm hoping to be able to get in the pool before the next time you see me. We'll see if that actually comes to be. All right, guys, we'll see you in the main forum.